welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 42 for the week of September 15th, 2019. I am your host, Drew, and I am joined by mouse and keyboard, Will.
What is up, Drew?
Dude, we missed the fucking birthday of the Dreamcast.
We did, and I'm a little upset because we could have timed the episode perfectly with that, but I'm really pumped that we're doing it now, and we're not forgetting about this very special anniversary.
Yeah, man. Bad on us.
Or birthday.
Yeah, well, is it? Yeah, I guess it's a birthday.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, like you have anniversaries of like shows and stuff. I guess it could be considered an anniversary. I'm saying birthday. Fuck it. It's a birthday. Happy birthday, Dreamcast. We're a little late. We're belated.
Yeah, it's belated.
We're recording on the 13th, and your birthday was the 9th. But we're going to talk about you for like an hour. And
oh, for sure.
And that's going to be great.
I think that'll make up for the the belatedness.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
How are you doing, bud?
I'm well. I'm really well. I had some bombas, which I might share. I might share what those are a little bit later in the show.
For the listeners that, like me, still don't know what the fuck you're talking about, what is a bomba?
Okay, we'll cut to the chase. So a bomba is a Trader Joe's snack. For those of you familiar with Trader Joe's, they often will make pretty unique snacks, and this is certainly one of them. Drew, when I shared the photo with you, Drew, you thought it was a hot air... No, you thought it was your grandmother's chandelier.
Well, the bag, yeah. The bag looks like my grandmother's chandelier.
Right, so even older.
Yeah. It's from it's from like the 1740s. Like I could see the fucking like whale wax in there.
Yeah, and it turns out that it's basically P.T. Barnum's like hot air balloon,
Oh.
Well, not really, but that's what it makes me think of. I think of elephants, I think of P.T. Barnum, hot air balloons. It kind of reminds me of that time period. But a bomba is a peanut butter flavored Jax. So sort of like a Cheetos Puffs, but more melt in your mouth status, and it's peanut butter flavored. So a weird snack, but outrageously good.
The picture that you sent me looks like a miniature penis.
Unfortunately, the first picture did, and a blurry one.
It's all blurry. Like this is fucking Anthony Weiner here.
Yeah, it's like a MySpace like dick pic.
Yeah.
With like a weird like webcam.
So you took it with a flip phone.
Yeah. But luckily, the second photo was much more clear. Can see some of the peanut butter granules on this fine bomba. Man, I am really dressing these things up way more than they should be dressed up.
Yeah.
This is a fucking peanut butter Jax, all right? Like, it's delicious. The bag is light, and there's a lot in there. So if you have a Trader Joe's, look for some bombas.
Bomba.
But other than that, man, I'm well. I'm pumped for this episode. I've been playing some Bastion. We're going to save some of that stuff for the next episode, but I'm really excited to talk about a very special system. Yeah,
man, me too. And I got a lot of stories to tell with this thing, a lot of great memories. I'm really looking forward to just kind of reliving one of my favorite systems of all time. Man, I'm just getting like warm, fuzzy feelings just thinking about it.
I know. It's like, where do we start? I mean, how are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm well.
Okay.
I'm everything is wonderful. I'm about to start my new shift at work, starting tomorrow.
Beautiful.
Which has its ups and downs. I'll be working nights, which is going to throw off the release schedule for the show. Just a heads up, everybody, we're probably going to be changing our release days pretty soon. So just keep an eye out for that. So I'll be working a second shift, basically, like 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So that'll kind of suck, but the traffic to and from work should be significantly better, I'm hoping. So I'll get some of my life back, which is nice.
Good.
And, it won't be like smack dab in the middle of the day, so I'll be able to do stuff, before work. And I think my quality of life will change for the better. I don't know if it would be for the best compared to like a 7 to 3 a.m., like a daytime shift. But I'll take what I can get. It's not overnights, and yeah.
Yeah, bottom line is, folks, this train never stops. Like
Yeah.
Drew said, we're going to have a different release schedule, but, we're still going to be pumping out shows that are quality every week.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Or at least the quality that you've come to expect, which is, a pretty low threshold, let's be honest. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, share with all your friends. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGR Podcast, at WDGR Podcast. We are on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can download a show. You can download us. We even have a YouTube channel. It's basically the same show, just with a picture. It's great. Will, if somebody wants to follow you on social media, how can they find you?
Will_gear.
You can find me at ScienceStorm. And don't forget, folks, jump in the show notes. There is a link to our Discord room. If you've ever had a desire to chat with us through the week about games, maybe send us a question, comment, whatever, that's the best place to do it. We are active and engaging in our Discord, and it's a great time. So come on by and say hi.
Yeah, please do.
So, Will, on September 9th, 1999, North America saw the launch of the Sega Dreamcast, the final system to come from Sega.
Sadly, yes.
Man, that's a sad thought just thinking about it. But she went out with a bang, man. Like the Dreamcast is one of those systems that just burned for a very short amount of time, but it was hot and bright.
100%. And, just kind of dwelling on the release and the end of the Dreamcast, just thinking back on things, what a push, like I feel like when they released the Dreamcast, just the software was some of the best software I think we've ever seen in such a short amount of time. It just seemed like they kind of came out of the gates just full bore, guns blazing, like let's just give it our all, knowing that this is going to be the end. And I just feel like they really did that.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a really strong showing for Sega. The hardware produced some really just bright, colorful graphics. The music came through with a clarity that I think really was kind of unmatched up to that point. And yeah, man, like Sega just was in a weird mindset. Like they were so creative with the games that they made and the way they presented this system and everything about it. Like I just felt like this was what's the best way to put it? You know how like Nintendo is like kind of the quirky kid on the block right now?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think like for that generation, the Dreamcast was the quirky kid because they were the ones that were experimenting with different types of hardware, different types of software. Their ad campaigns were ridiculous. They're putting out these just games that, would just get like completely, I think, overlooked in today's market. But while they were delivering like these like under the radar games, they were also hitting like blockbusters too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just even looking at the system, I know Joe had remarked, and we'll get to that later, but it's a really bizarre looking system. There's really nothing that's streamlined about it. The controller is enormous. It's got a weird, like, the cord comes out of the bottom. There's obviously like this play on like triangular shapes because you can kind of see it with some of the lines on the system and like the power light or the power LED, the start button on the controller. It's an odd pairing, but somehow it just kind of worked, and it's almost as though people ignored all of that because the software was so good. Yeah,
I mean there were definitely some faults with the system, and it wasn't perfect, but it made up for it in so many other ways. And man, tell me about your first experience with the Dreamcast.
Sure. So I remember there's these guys actually listen to the show. So Grant and Gareth, if you are listening, shout outs to you guys. These guys were proponents of the Dreamcast before anyone that I knew in my circle of friends. And it was them that really kind of piqued my interest to purchase one. So I did, and it probably was 1999, or it might have been 2000. It was certainly between those 2 years. And I remember it just costing the earth back then, with my wallet funds. And, I got it, and it just felt very high end because I feel like it really kind of was. Like, it felt like very niche and just kind of exclusive at the time. That if you had a Dreamcast, it was kind of a big deal. And
Right.
I remember that being kind of a thing. Like, it was a stigma almost. And, I remember buying it, and I think I had a Hydro Thunder, I want to say, for as my first game. Excuse me. And then I believe I had Blue Stinger. And I remember also renting a lot of games at first.
Okay.
So Blue Stinger might have been a rental. And then I had a demo disc as well, which I'm pretty sure I certainly, maximized that to death. But yeah, I just remember getting it, from being influenced by them having it. And other than that, like, I obviously have a lot more memories in terms of games, but, picking up the console was fairly straightforward. Like, there
Yeah.
wasn't any kind of special story behind buying it. It's not like I had a unique Toys R Us story like I did with the Super Nintendo.
Right.
So not a whole lot to build on there, but yeah, I just remember paying a lot, being kind of broke after getting it, and just feeling like I had something really special. So I'm glad I was, around to experience it while it was, hot.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, I remember hearing about it just prior to the launch, and man, I was so excited about this system because, like, I had a PlayStation, and my mom had bought that for me for Christmas, but she told me, she's like, all right, from here on out, any video games that you want, you have to pay for yourself. You have to buy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuck with me in a couple ways. First of all, it was extreme disappointment. But secondly, it kind of gave me the drive and motivation to start going out and working to earn the things that I wanted. Mm-hmm. So I was let's see here. I was a sophomore going into my junior year of high school over the summer of 1999. And our schools were in the process of moving from an old building to a new building. So I spent 2 years in the old building, 2 years in the new building. And as part of going to the new building, they needed help tearing down all the computers, cleaning them, and then putting them back together in new computer labs at the new location. Now, this is before, like, people had, like, IT departments, So they rounded up basically the nerdiest students that they could find in the entire school and said, hey, we'll pay you guys $10 an hour to come do this for us. And there was like maybe 10, 15 of us, right? Not even. I would say no more than 10 of us. Mm-hmm. We would get together Monday through Friday for 5 to 7 hours. And we would take apart all these computers, vacuum out the dust, clean them, make sure everything is good, make sure everything works, upgrade the software, clone the hard drives, all this like stupid mundane shit that people get paid like $80,000 a year to do now. And we were getting paid like $10 an hour. And I saved all that money and I went out and I fucking bought a Dreamcast with it.
God, that must have felt so like rewarding.
It was. It was like the best thing ever. And I remember. Where did
you get it from?
I don't know, but I'll bet you if I go and look in the, because I still have the box.
Okay.
I think
the original box.
The original box. I keep all my shit. I'm a pack rat.
Good on you, man. That's amazing.
There's a chance that I may still have the original sales receipt.
Ooh. That is like hardcore hoarding, man.
Well, because like you know what? I used to throw the receipt in the box in case like there was an issue and I ever needed to return it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you never do.
Right, never.
And then now it's a relic of the past. And I'm not going to throw it away now. Like that's that's kind of the mentality. So like if I open up like my copy of Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, which is also complete in its box, you will find in that box a receipt to Woolworth.
Oh God.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, no, if you still have that box and the receipt, absolutely keep that.
I don't know how good podcast this would be, but I could actually like turn around and go get it right now.
It's funny you mentioned that because I thought about like breaking out my Dreamcast and just kind of having it like next to me
Yeah.
throughout the show because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like weird like that. Like I just want like, something to be around me. And sometimes I do things like that. And I thought about it, but,
Yeah.
it's stored away safe and sound. So,
But man, I remember my buddies Eker and Jonathan. We were all playing the Dreamcast together whenever we were able to. We'd run over. They'd come over to my place, or they end up getting a Dreamcast of their own, and they had different games, and we kind of go back and forth. Kind of the same thing as like with the Sega and the Super Nintendo when we were growing up. And then when I was able to start driving, I started hanging out with Vic and Vency and Damien a little bit more frequently.
sure.
And man, that was just a whole nother like level of Dreamcast play. It was just like we would spend hours and hours and hours, multiple nights a week, just fucking playing like as many fighting games as we could.
Were you guys playing with the controllers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were. It was I don't know what the reasoning was, but like for me, I've never been an arcade stick guy. The arcade sticks are just not comfortable in my hands. They hurt my hands. I think I have like a little bit of like carpal tunnel kind of thing going on there, and just the angle of it and everything, it just hurts like the top of my hand, right where all my finger bones are.
Okay.
So I was always a controller guy, and even though the Dreamcast controller, it's questionable. I fucking made it work.
You
Like,
kind of had to. Like, I feel like the controller left you with no choice.
Well, like I thought the placement of the main buttons was fine. The placement of the analog stick was fine. But then you get into the D-pad and the triggers. And the triggers were a little bit on the long side. They had a little bit too much travel to them, I think, which wasn't exactly the best thing for a lot of fighting games, but if you were playing like a shooter, that was a much better thing. The D-pad for fighting games was rough, but once you got used to it, you made it work.
Yeah.
And I was still always better with the D-pad than I was with the arcade stick.
And that's impressive. I always find it to be really impressive just overall, like when anybody can use really any controller for a fighting game. And I think that I've been spoiled where I've, developed a knack to at least understand and learn to an extent how to use an arcade stick. So I do prefer that now. But, I can use a controller if I have to, but I'm really bad at, half circling, and stuff like that because it doesn't always jive that well unless you really kind of know how to flow with it.
Did you have an arcade stick back in the day?
I didn't back in the day. I received my first one actually off of those two brothers that I had mentioned before on the episode. And they sold me theirs. I remember Grant I realized that he had it or he was trying to sell it or something. And I remember I bought there was actually, I believe, two. There was one that was actually made by Dreamcast, and then there was another one that was made by, I think it was Agitech or something like that. Agetech, or it was some like weird third-party brand. But ironically, I guess the arcade sticks were identical. It's just Dreamcast, I think, put out a couple or put out one originally, and then this other company decided to make it as well. I could be wrong on that, but that was when I acquired it, and that wasn't until like 2009 or 10 that I actually got it. So when I first had the system, when it was in full force, I did not have the arcade stick.
So when you finally got your arcade stick, was it the one with the green buttons?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which I think is one of the best.
It's one of the best arcade sticks I think ever made for a home console.
Yes,
period.
It's I think you and I can both agree that when it comes to home arcade sticks, they've really never been great. That was one of the first that really just kind of did it right. And then, we had the future of, Mad Catz and a lot of stuff that those guys were doing were they were putting out some pretty quality products.
Yeah.
But you know, after that, it's now moved into obviously third-party companies that make some pretty amazing stuff. But yeah, at the time, a wonderful arcade stick, and certainly really desirable for a lot of the fighting games that the Dreamcast was, housing.
Yeah, and it's tough to actually find one nowadays too. Like they're kind of a rarity, and they fetch a pretty good price when you do find them.
Certainly, I think I paid 100 for two off of eBay.
Each or total?
I think it was total. I got really lucky with those two pickups. I could go back and probably find out how much I paid, but I'm pretty sure it was 99 for both, and if it wasn't, it was 99 for each. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was 99 for each because, they really are just that hard to find.
I'm looking on eBay, and there's quite a few listings, but they all start around that price range. Like here's one that's like a $27 bid with 4 days left, but it's $25 shipping. So that's going to be up around $100 by the time it's done. The other ones that are like buy it nows are like $70, $80 each.
Yeah, and I specifically wanted to find two.
Yeah.
For just game days and game nights, and it was important for me to get something that was high quality and in good shape.
Yeah.
And that's just my mantra altogether. Generally. So once I purchased those two, I probably did pay, a little bit more than what your average person or average collector would pay because I wanted something that was like next to new.
So just want to get this out there on public record, okay? If you ever sell those to anybody other than me, I will come to your house, I will shove bombas down your throat.
Oh.
And you won't even be able to chew them.
Oh, death by bomba.
Death by bomba.
That would be horrible. I don't think I'm selling those things, man. A lot of that stuff that I acquired for game day was just so thoughtful and so like it was very like a blood, sweat, and tears kind of like situation with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of research and a lot of time into acquiring those items. So I really, really doubt that stuff's ever going to get sold. And if it does, it's going to be like when I'm like old and like not a gamer anymore. And that's going to be pretty hard pressed as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I just went down an eBay rabbit hole and now I'm looking at a fucking Sega Dreamcast twin stick for like virtual on.
Oh yeah, just be careful because you can definitely go down that hole and it gets very enticing because you're like, ooh, like
$150.
You're like, I kind of do have the money for this, and it is in really good shape, and you get kind of suckered in because some of these people are really good at taking like good photos of their stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes like what you see is what you get, but sometimes what you see is what you don't get, and that happened to me with I think it was the Dreamcast, actually, when I rebought it recently, because I do not have my original one anymore. In the picture, I think there was a lack thereof a picture, but the description said that it was like, next to new quality and blah, 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 blah. And like they really like upsold it. And when I got it, I mean, it's in great shape, but there is like yellow staining on it, which like really kind of irked me. It's not the end of the world because it really does run flawlessly and the rest of it is in excellent shape. But it would have been nice if they said that there was like yellow staining on it.
There might be something that we could do to clean that without like doing anything abrasive.
Yeah, and if we do, we should definitely make like a little video for the show of us like tuning up one of the greatest systems ever.
Fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah.
So yeah, I mean, had the arcade stick 2010. Don't remember really using it then. I think I just kind of stowed it away, but we broke them out for game day and that was a blast.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and even though like I do prefer a controller, it was really great to have that stick in my hands. I had only very limited exposure with it, and it just feels so like just man, the quality. It feels like I'm at an arcade.
It's fucking tough. Like it's a heavy stick. Like
it is.
There's like metal materials and. It's just got some nice, significant weight to it, so it feels special. And the fact that you can pop a memory card or a VMU in there is wonderful as well. So,
let's talk about the VMU for a second. Virtual memory unit, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Memory card with a fucking LCD screen on it and controller buttons.
Yeah, very Tamagotchi-esque. Such a bizarre sort of idea, that really obviously came into place. And apparently a lot of people were pretty big advocates of them too. Like I know people would play games on the go. Um, you had certain animations that would play, in certain games if you had it installed on your controller or stick or whatever.
Hmm.
And quite an interesting little device. It's just amazing that a lot of people often overlook the VMU.
Yeah. It was just, oh man, it was capable of doing so many things, and I don't think it's been even like remotely replicated until I would say maybe the PS4 controller by the use of the LED light. Like that's the only thing that even comes close to giving any of the information that the VMU was capable of. Like you could use that as a means of telling how much life your character had in certain games. In like Soul Calibur, for example, it just showed a portrait of your character. Some games you could take it and use it to like level up characters within the game. In fact, if I remember correctly, Street Fighter Alpha 3 had some sort of a feature where you could use the VMU in that way because it had like a world tour mode. I'm trying to remember. Let me take a look here. I'm literally going through the manual as we speak. Yeah, man, there was some just incredible stuff that came from that little device, and it was so creative and innovative and just completely different from the bland, boring old just memory card that you just stick into the front of the system and hope for the best,
Yeah, I think, touching on the DS4, the DualShock 4 that we have currently for the PS4, it does kind of remind me of that. Like, the fact that, you don't have a screen on that controller, but you do have a light bar.
Mm-hmm.
And with the latest controller, they have like a little light strip as well on the top.
Yeah.
And then you have the speaker. And those two features are often very overlooked because there are a lot of games that implement both and or one. Sometimes the light will change color depending on where you are in the game, as well as the speaker being utilized. So I never hear anybody talk about those two features on the DS4. And then when the Dreamcast was out, I don't recall too many people even really mentioning the VMU in the light that it should have been under.
Yeah.
Those brothers that I was mentioning before, these guys were like probably the biggest Dreamcast fans I think I've ever encountered. They still are. And I remember they would use that VMU. Like they probably know everything that it's capable of doing. And they were big proponents of using every single peripheral to like their full potential.
Yeah.
We'll have to get one of those guys on the show because this would have been the show to have them on. It should have been like the four of us because it would have been incredible. But yeah, I just I didn't have a whole lot of exposure to it, man.
Yeah,
I really didn't.
Let me see if I can just. I've been looking around trying to find like some examples of games that used it because it was really it was something special, man.
It really was. Like I said, it had a Tamagotchi kind of feel about it because it was very small and like the buttons were small and
so like here's and the other thing too, I completely forgot about this, but you could actually hook up two VMUs together to trade files between units.
You know what? I don't think I knew that.
I never actually did it, but I completely forgot that was possible.
I wonder if, you know what? I think Vic might have done that, like when we were at Game Day, because he was able to give me, I think his like MVC2 like unlocks. So he must have done something like that because he didn't give me his VMU. He must have found a way to either get it onto the Dreamcast memory or he put it on one of my VMUs.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it from within the system itself. You can copy files. But yeah, if you have a working battery, because these things required like a watch battery to function on their own. You can plug it into the controller and it'll be fine, but in order to use it, otherwise you need a watch battery for it.
Yeah, and speaking of that battery, it's actually quite large. It's one of those like kind of disc,
Yeah.
It's a watch battery, but it's larger.
It's a big watch battery.
Yeah, it's a real big watch battery. But I remember when I ordered the two VMUs recently, and mind you, I got them brand new. They were two like neon green ones or whatever, and I had to order batteries as well because I wanted to make sure that I had extras.
Yeah.
And I remember like there's some kind of strip in there that I think I had to pull out to make sure the battery was connected. And these fucking things, if I remember correctly, they make like a really loud like beeping sound, like when they're like turned on.
Yep.
And I remember like Lauren was in the room and we were just like, what the fuck was that?
Mm.
And it was like one of those sounds that like doesn't really emanate from the device itself. I mean, obviously it does, but what you hear feels like it's coming from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the hell was that? And sure enough, it was just some kind of like activation of the VMU because the battery was being recognized. It was crazy.
If your battery is dead and you have the VMU connected to a controller, when you turn the system on, it makes the same noise.
Interesting.
So like the batteries in mine have been dead for forever. I really do need to replace them, or at least remove the ones that are in there. And yeah, it every time I turn on this the VMU, or every time I turn on my Dreamcast, you get that beep, you know.
So what we need to do is we need to bring back the VMU.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do like a playthrough. We should do a playthrough of like one of the games
of the VMU.
if that's even possible.
Well, like I'm looking at the list of mini games here, and I'll toss a link for you as well in our
please
our thing. But like there's mini games for it, and then there's in-game features, and more games use the in-game features than the mini games. But like for example, Power Stone had 3 games based off of the characters. One of them it looks like it may have been like a slot machine game. There was a shuriken game. Let's see here. Shenmue had mini games on it. Skies of Arcadia had mini games, which I don't recall. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. And then like fucking Marvel vs. Capcom 2 had like arcade connectivity. So I guess like certain machines you could just go in and plug your VMU into it, and
that's amazing. I was just going to mention that too. Like it was the first thing I was looking for. I was like, where's MVC2? And, not only do you have the transfer characters, colors, and stages, which I think we were aware of. Just reading that arcade connectivity, I was like, holy shit, like this is, I had no idea until literally just now. I didn't know that was possible.
I think it may have just been in Japan. It says players would be able to connect their VMU to the arcade version to exchange data, earning them experience points, which could be used to unlock new character stages and costume colors in their home version. Yeah,
that reminds me of NFL Blitz. I know I mentioned on a previous episode that the arcade machine for NFL Blitz enables you to bring your N64 memory card to the arcade. You could load it up and get your stats and characters and all that stuff.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's just like little things, man, like that, like people just overlooked.
Another really cool thing with the Dreamcast is they had a keyboard and mouse for it.
That's right, and wasn't that for typing in the dead?
Well, the keyboard was used for typing of the dead, and as well as Phantasy Star Online. But there were other games that were compatible with it too, like Quake 3 Arena. You could use a keyboard and mouse while you're playing that game.
Ooh, you know what? Man, I'm getting like all giddy now because I'm thinking about like all the things that I didn't know about and like how I want like that keyboard now and the mouse. Because Quake 3, like that's one of my top 5, which we'll discuss later. But the fact that now I know that I can play the Quake 3 Arena Dreamcast with a Dreamcast mouse and keyboard is such an exciting proposition. So,
well, if you'd like to try it out, I have them all. So come on over.
That's it. I'm coming over. I'm coming over, Drew.
I got the keyboard, I got the mouse, I got Quake 3 Arena. And I'm not sure if it's compatible with Unreal Tournament, but I have to look at that too. But I have Unreal Tournament as well.
And for folks listening, this keyboard was legit. Like it was a real keyboard. Wasn't some fucking toy or some like weird video game peripheral. Like this was a legit keyboard. I remember it being white, and I'm pretty sure it had a Dreamcast logo somewhere. Mm-hmm. Wasn't it like also? Didn't they partner with like a third party company as well, or was it just solely just like a Dreamcast?
I mean, I'm sure they probably have a third party version of it, but I mean, the one that I'm familiar with is the original.
Official.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. They also had a rumble pack too. Don't forget about that. There's a rumble pack you can connect. And the nice thing with the controller too is it had 2 ports for VMU, so you could put the VMU in the top port and then the rumble pack in the bottom port and get a little bit of vibration in your games, which depending on the game you were playing could be pretty intense. Like a game like Rez, for example, you could plug 4 controllers in if they all had rumble packs, like, and basically like set up rumble zones while you're playing the game. Is really fucking crazy.
I was not aware of that, and I just Googled the Dreamcast keyboard, and yes, it absolutely was 100% Sega.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like there's any other third-party company on the box. And speaking of the advertising with the peripherals and just the system itself, really enjoyed the kind of design work and the sort of art that they kind of put into the boxes.
Yeah.
Because like when you look at the Dreamcast keyboard box, like it's so 80s, like with the colors and like this sort of blurred the blurred like image on part of it, like it's got this sort of bokeh effect, like it's
they have 2 different versions of the art because they kind of shifted their art design, I think, halfway through the cycle of the system. So if you're looking at like the first half, it has like that white border on the left-hand side that emulates the Dreamcast, and it kind of looks like the artwork for some of the earlier Dreamcast games. Yeah. And then once the art direction for the system switched over to the black border, they released a new box for the Dreamcast keyboard that has like a black background, and it looks like the fucking keyboard's coming over the moon. It's different.
Yeah, it's just overall, like, I think you're right that, when you look at, like the keyboard box, and then you look at the, whatever, like the latest model of the Dreamcast was, like right before it died, the controller or the box for the system had more of like a blue, like, hue to it.
Yeah.
And I believe there was, I think almost no white on there at all. Because I remember that box, like, completely. It was a blue hue. It kind of looked like it was sort of rising from the fucking dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's that kind of scheme.
Yeah. I actually don't have a box for the keyboard. Our friend of the site, Damien Saikoro, actually hooked me up with his keyboard. He was a big Phantasy Star Online player, and when he decided he was going to get rid of his system, he passed the keyboard along to me. And actually, I have his Dreamcast as well too, because the disc reader in mine, my original one, stopped working. And when he was getting ready to sell his, he decided just to give it to me. He didn't. I don't remember if he wanted anything for it or if I gave him like maybe $25-$50. It was like an absurd deal, regardless. But yeah, he hooked me up. End of story. But yeah, man, like just looking through all this stuff, and then the mouse is kind of a similar box to that other one with the dark kind of background, and it's a great mouse too. Like it feels good. I'm pretty sure it's a ball mouse though. You're not gonna have a laser inside that thing, so
no.
Break out the mouse pad, make sure there's no lint on it, and
Yeah, I remember just being in school trying to take the little ball out. I'm pretty sure like everybody did that. They're like, let me just twist this thing and take this fucking weird ball that doesn't bounce.
Yep.
You go to bounce it, it just fucking falls like a marble.
Now, do you remember how the Dreamcast had like a bunch of different colors for their VMUs and controllers too? Like that was like really fucking cool to me.
Yes. So like I had mentioned before, I have like a weird like translucent forest green like VMUs currently, but I do remember like sort of offshoot colors. There was third-party companies that were making some pretty weird shit. The controller, I'm pretty sure, also came in different colors.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't have like vivid memories of all of that, but I certainly do remember quite a few different variations of some of those accessories.
Yeah. There was so another thing I wanted to talk about too was the Dreamcast being the first system to include a built-in modem, which, you could use for connecting to the internet, but you could also play fucking games on it. And they came out with a broadband adapter later on in the life cycle. So if you were one of the lucky kids on the block to have access to, broadband internet, you could play over that instead of using your dial-up.
Yeah, amazing. And another thing that was often overlooked, I think it was so new and a lot of folks didn't have the greatest internet back then, that it just wasn't something that was really viable at the time.
Mm. But you can see how they kind of paved the way for, what we know to be like standard at this point, like Xbox Live and PSN, Dreamcast, they were doing it first.
Yeah, they really were. And, who would have thought that, Sega's last system would be a proponent of, let's make this fucking thing online.
Yeah, it's just so many revolutionary like things in the hardware side of things. Man, when this came out, like you got to think about the landscape that was out there. It was PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. And like I love both of those systems, don't get me wrong. But they weren't exactly like pretty games, Like
they weren't.
The Sega, the PlayStation games and the N64 games, great games, kind of looked like ass. And then this Dreamcast comes out, and it is just fucking gorgeous, colorful, beautiful artwork, full 3D, fast animations. It was just jaw-dropping, man. Like, everything about it just felt futuristic.
It really did, and that's kind of, harkens back to what I said before. Like, this system really felt exclusive back then, and, like, if you had one, I don't know, it just felt amazing to have it because you knew that it was something really special, and let's not to mention like the VGA cable. I mean that's a subject in itself, but like what an amazing accessory if you could find one, and you had a pretty decent monitor like Soul Calibur on a VGA.
Oh man,
you want to talk about holding up like in time, man? Like that still looks amazing.
Yeah, it really does. Well, should we start talking about our favorite games?
Let's.
I could just keep kind of waxing poetic about this system for hours, but we have topics to hit. So, Will and I sat down separately, independently, and chose our five of our favorite games for the Dreamcast. And it doesn't necessarily mean the best games for the Dreamcast, but 5 of our favorite games that were released on the system. And Will, I think I don't know. Do you want me to go first? Or you want to go first?
I'll go first. Why not?
All right. Yeah. Let's hear your number 5.
Sure. So we're gonna start from 5 up, like in terms of like my least favorite out of the 5.
Yes, and
okay.
by least favorite, you know, like that's still a beloved game, of course. But yeah, we want to save the best for last. Your absolute favorite Dreamcast game is going to be your number 1, your final choice.
Got it. All right. So I would go with the least favorite out of my 5 would be Quake 3 Arena. And it's hard for me to say that because I really did enjoy the Dreamcast version of that game. Excuse me. But man, like that game looked so good, and just being able to play the Doom guy and stuff, and being able to play that kind of game on a home console instead of a PC, which I think a lot of folks were used to with Doom and stuff like that. It just felt really good, and it just looked so good.
Yeah,
and it played well even just with the controller.
I had that as like my 5A. Like I was going back and forth between 2 games for my number 5. So I'm going to thank you for making this easy for me, because now I can talk about another game instead. but man, like I played a fuck ton of Quake 3 Arena on the Dreamcast, both with and without the mouse and keyboard. With the controller was challenging, but they fucking made it work. Like I was able to look and move at the same time, and for me that was a first on a console for a first-person shooter. The PlayStation. There weren't a ton of first-person games that came out on that. We had Doom, which was a fantastic version of Doom, but Doom is still, left, right, forward, back. There's no up and down. Yep. And you got to consider too that with the PlayStation 1, the DualShock was not a requirement. It didn't ship with every system until after a certain point. So a lot of developers didn't develop for the DualShock exclusively until later in the console's life cycle, if at all. So analog sticks weren't really a thing. Everything was still on that, it may have been a 3D game, but it's still on that plane of like, of a 2D looking, basically. Quake 3 Arena, and to its credit, also Unreal Tournament was one of the first times that I felt like I was having a PC experience on a console.
Mm-hmm.
And I never had the money to buy a PC that was capable of running these games the way they should have. If you compare Quake 3 Arena on the PC to this, I'm sure Quake 3 Arena on the PC like blows us out of the water.
Oh, of course.
But for a broke-ass kid who has a Sega Dreamcast, man, this was the fucking shit. You know?
Yeah, and just looking at this little article that came with some of my top 5, because I took screenshots of these games from an article, and it says, in 2000, first-person gaming had progressed from the claustrophobic hellscapes of Doom and Quake into multiplayer tournament play to test the limits of LAN play and the burgeoning internet. So, thinking back on Quake 3 Arena, just the movement, it's kind of like what you said about Doom, like you have up, down, left, right, and very kind of simple controls. Quake was special because, like Unreal, it's fast. And, having that game where you're sort of running unrealistically quickly and having like these amazing weapons and you're just kind of fragging people, it's great. And I'm pretty sure Quake 3 Arena also had bots.
It did.
If you couldn't go online, the bots were actually quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I was never online with this game. I played exclusively with the bots unless I had somebody over, then we would do split screen, which worked surprisingly well. And, man, like, just what a fast, fun game. Like, I just, vivid memories of flying around on these fucking, like, springboards, just trying to shoot people with a railgun while they're zooming around in the air as well, too, and just getting launched across an arena. It ran smooth, it ran fast, it was Quake, and it was incredible.
Yeah, it was just pure candy, man. I really miss it. Hopefully I'll pick it up someday because I would love to fire that up.
Yeah, man. You have to come over and play.
Yeah, definitely. So are we going to go back and forth? I can't remember if you said. Okay.
Yeah, let's go back and forth. For me,
got it.
This was like I said a moment ago, this was really difficult for me to pick like a top 5. Like my number 1 was an easy pick, but my number 5 and number 4, and they were really difficult choices for me. I got to go with Jet Grind Radio for my number 5.
Okay.
What a unique, fun game. It just oozes with style and charisma. It's got an amazing soundtrack. It's weird. It
certainly is weird.
Oh man, it's like Sega being Sega at their best. You're a graffiti artist running from the cops, running from whoever's chasing you, trying to tag all these different things using button combinations and direction combinations to tag them. And the soundtrack in this game is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yes. It sets the tone for the game in a way that no other game has, in my opinion. Oh man. And like, I wasn't even that good at this game. Like, there's people that are insane. Our buddy Vic Vortex, I know he used to spend a lot of time with this game too. And man, he was much better at this than I was. I used to watch him play, and I was just in awe.
It's a game that I've never played.
So good.
I've heard so many good things, and I've heard so many good things about the soundtrack as well. In fact, I think I have heard some of the soundtrack probably from Vic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to check it out. I mean, it reminds me of like this, a spin on like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but like, just smashed and covered in, Sega love and, weird art and such a strange concept. But man, like, this idea of roller skating around or roller blading.
Yeah.
And spray painting things with just crazy moves and music is such a unique climate to kind of really, be in.
Yeah, it's such a unique style too. Like all the characters had this amazing look to them. It was one of the first games to like really use cell shading for their art, and
yes, which I love.
It just had those thick lines that just kind of made everything stand out, which also added to the graffiti look of everything. But oh man, just this game just oozes charisma. If you haven't played it, I think it's definitely worth checking out. For the life of me, I'll never understand why they felt the need to change the name from Jet Set Radio to Jet Grind Radio. I know they came out with a version of this for the Xbox called Jet Set Radio Future, I believe. And, that's also excellent. But this is a must play, without a doubt. I can't recommend it enough.
Noted. I would say my number 4 pick would be Crazy Taxi.
Ooh! Yeah!
Oh, Jesus. So my fondest memory of this game is actually from the arcades. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure that I was playing it in the arcades before the Dreamcast. I could be wrong on that. It could have been the other way around, but I do remember playing the arcades a lot, and that was a ton of fun. But, playing on the Dreamcast and be able to play, one of my favorite arcade games ever at home was a real joy. And, for folks who haven't played this game, it literally is you choosing like a crazy character in a crazy taxi, and you literally are driving this taxi around like a fucking madman.
Yeah.
Like a GTA 5, like I'm just going to let loose and not do anything and run people over. That's essentially what this game was all about, is like, I'm going to be a reckless taxi cab driver. I'm going to pick up as many fares as I possibly can. And, I don't know who created this, man, but whoever did, just genius, there hasn't been anything like it since. And to my knowledge, there's nothing like Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, I mean, they had a sequel. I'm not sure if they had more than one. Yeah, so there's a few different sequels. And there's actually a slot machine at the casino, too. So that's kind of fun. But, yeah, I mean, this was one of the, this game, I think, was a release game with the Dreamcast, if I'm not mistaken.
It probably was.
And this was, proof that the Dreamcast was capable of doing arcade perfect games.
100%. 100%. And that's something that I want to touch on at some point during this episode, is just the arcade perfect notion that, or not even really a notion, more of like a fact that this system had. It really was meant to handle almost any arcade game, and the ones that it handled well, I mean, my God. I guess, thanks to Sega's Naomi arcade system board, it was capable of really just translating so well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a lot to say about that as I get into my list as well, too, because, man, the Dreamcast handled arcades better than arcades.
It seems so, man. It certainly seemed that way.
But, yeah, Crazy Taxi, fun game.
Super fun.
I enjoyed it, but not to the extent that I think you did and a lot of our friends did. I was never that good at it, so I tended to focus on games that I was better at. But man, I did have a lot of fun, not only playing this game, but watching people play it. It is super entertaining and great soundtrack, especially if you're into The Offspring. They just fucking killed it with just this perfect music for it. And I know, I didn't write the songs for the game, obviously, but man, if any game was made for a band, it was this one.
It was. I actually don't really like The Offspring at all, but they were the right fit for I think what you're experiencing in the game.
Yeah.
And lastly, the taxis fucking look good too, man.
Oh yeah.
They just looked really good. They were so yellow, and I think it just kind of it reminds me of what you said before. This system was so capable of putting out some really solid colors.
Yeah. And
everything just kind of popped. And I think Crazy Taxi was a really good way to demonstrate how the colors were sort of framed.
Everything was so brown and drab for so long. And then the Dreamcast comes along and it's just all these primary colors and thick lines and flashing lights, and it's like walking into an arcade and you're just being wowed by all these great sounds and noises and lights, and there hasn't been a system that's done it since.
No, I really haven't seen a system that has made colors pop the way Dreamcast does. I mean, we can't really relate to things like current gen. I mean, yes, there are games that look amazing, but There's just something about what Dreamcast did. They obviously put a lot of attention on color, and you can even kind of see that within just the buttons on the controller. Everything's just very sort of fun and bright.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 4, we're going to RPGs, man. Grandia 2 for the Sega Dreamcast. And, when I'm looking at this game, like, I really want to pick up the Grandia collection that just came out, the HD collection on the Nintendo Switch. Because I haven't played the first Grandia game, and I haven't played the second one in so long that my memory of it is really pretty poor. I'm not going to lie. But I remember being so completely entranced by this game. I had just come off of playing like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, and I was very much like into RPGs at the time. And Squaresoft had like just this vibe about their games. You play a Final Fantasy game, you know it's a Final Fantasy game through and through. It doesn't matter which one you're playing. They just have a feel about them. It's hard to explain, right? And then all of a sudden, Grandia 2 comes along, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Let's try this. I like RPGs. Completely different than anything I'd ever played before. The battle system was completely different. The way the game looked was completely different. The colors, the vibrancy. Again, we're talking about the fucking colors here. Just everything about this game was just so fresh and new and exciting. I was thrilled with the fact that I could choose whether or not I actually wanted to battle random encounters. Like you could see them walking around the map. You could choose to go up to them and start a fight with them, or you can ignore them completely, which is complete contrast to what Final Fantasy was doing back then.
Yeah, I actually never played Grandia 2, but I remember I think I bought it off of those same guys. I'm pretty sure that they either gifted it to me or I bought it off of them as kind of a bundle of games. But yeah, I don't think I ever loaded that one up.
It was a good game, man. It's something that I really want to spend some more time with going back to at some point because, I remember this game just being like incredible, and here I am 20 years later, and I remember almost nothing about it.
Well, there's a lot of folks that still talk about it. To my knowledge, it's still a pretty reputable game, even in today's time period. So
yeah, I mean, it just. It was a solid game with a good story. The characters were well done. The main character's name was Ryoto. He was a mercenary. He kind of starts off kind of gruff and everything, and then, by the end of the game, he turns around. He's all lovable and everything. But there was just a really strong, I think, gameplay core for me. Like that was the key. Because if I don't like the gameplay, I'm not going to stick with it. And this had just really great gameplay. I'm flipping through the manual, looking at some of the characters. I remember some of them, and I don't remember the others.
I miss game manuals.
Yeah, that's a whole another thing.
Oh no,
this one is at least like 80 pages too.
I love that.
58. I'm sorry, 58 pages. 65 pages.
Even though that's kind of overwhelming, I just miss that. There's a coziness to that. There's a nostalgic aspect to having a little book to flip through.
Yeah.
And look for game tips and character information and weapon information, and it's just nice to have that at your fingertips versus in a strategy guide or Google. Yeah.
Yeah, I miss having that tangible feeling. I was so disappointed when I bought Mario Kart 8 a couple weeks ago, and there was absolutely nothing inside it except for the game cartridge.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely nothing.
And that's standard. That's normal now. But, man, it breaks my heart.
Without going off on another tangent, but, it is a little bit shameful for Nintendo to be wasting so much plastic, considering, when you open that thing, it's not only is there nothing in there besides, the game is fucking tiny, because it's the size of a SD card, and it's so much plastic just to house that thing. But hey, that's another thing.
Well, here, let me just drop this one tidbit before we go here and move on to the next thing. Apparently, when Overwatch comes out later on this year, if you buy the physical edition, it's literally just a plastic case with a download code.
Wow.
There's no game cart. You're buying a case.
A case. Wow. We'll have to talk about that on a different episode, but because I have my qualms with that.
Yeah, me too.
So number 3 is going to be Soul Calibur. Now, a lot of folks are going to probably choose this as their number 1, or they're going to remember this as like being one of the best games ever for the system, and it is. It's number 3 for me because there are a couple other games that I like more, but
that's okay.
I have massive memories of playing this game. Now, I remember playing a lot and taking a long time to even just get remotely good with some of the characters that I was playing, because it's quite a difficult game. I still feel like Soul Calibur is not exactly a button mashing friendly game. So if you are that kind of gamer, good luck, because it's going to be doubtful that you're going to be able to pull something off if you just button mash. That's just my experience. Visually stunning. VGA cable or not, this game is just, it blew a lot of things out of the water. Incredibly polished, really just enhanced visuals, and a very arcade-ish feel, which is exactly what this game is all about. And music. If we're going to talk about music at all, this had some of the best music, I think, in any Dreamcast game, period. The stage music is just amazing. And having like the announcer for the fights, just everything about this game just felt so exhilarating. Loved it. But yeah, that would be my number 3.
Very nice. I'm gonna save my comments for later.
Fair.
My number 3 is Street Fighter Alpha 3.
Excellent choice.
Street Fighter Alpha 3 is my favorite Street Fighter, period, full stop.
Very respectable.
And this version of it is the best version of it. And I've played them all. I've played Street Fighter Alpha 3 on the PlayStation. I've played it in the arcade. I've played it on the Game Boy Advance. I've played it on PSP. I've played on every system that I am aware of it being available on. And this is the best version.
So in addition to this game, which I'm assuming is arcade perfect, naturally.
It is beyond arcade perfect.
Why,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So in addition to it being arcade perfect, which I think we knew was going to be the case, why is this the best iteration?
Well, first of all, it has more characters than the arcade version has.
Okay.
Right off the bat, there's characters that are available in it that are not available in the arcade under any circumstances. Let me see if I can find.
So we're talking about like the Fei Longs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there. Okay. Apparently, the PSP version has the most characters. Okay.
Oh. Okay.
But it's the PSP, so fuck that.
What an odd version.
Yeah, it's not bad. I've played it quite a bit too, and it's not bad. It's just it's restricted by the PSP itself. But yeah, I mean, like there's the Dreamcast version has more characters than the arcade, and it introduces like Fei Long, it introduces Guile. Who else? Let's see here. Shinakuma, T-Hawk's in it, DJ's in it, Evil Ryu's in it. So there's some pretty heavy hitters in the Street Fighter universe that weren't in the arcade. But the Dreamcast version also included so it built upon the PlayStation version itself. Now the PS version was pretty good, but it had like bad load times. The graphics weren't as good, and things like that. Whereas the Dreamcast version had no problem with any of that stuff. But it also had like different modes in it as well too. Like there's a world tour mode where you can build up your character, kind of increase his stats. You can focus on a certain fighting style. So you know how you have like the Xism, the Vism, and the Aism?
Yep.
You could kind of like train in one of those isms specifically. And build a character that is like just geared towards that particular mode, and you just kind of keep fighting and leveling up, and then you add those experience points to your character. You could kind of make it so that they're better at blocking, better at attacking, however you want to gear your fighter. You could do that, and it was like pretty fucking revolutionary for the time to have that in a fighting game, in my opinion. And then you could take those same characters and you could play with them in the regular campaign. You weren't just restricted to the World Tour mode. There was also like what the hell was it? There was another mode where you could basically take on two enemies at once, which was also really cool. And occasionally you would do that in World Tour mode anyway as well too. But yeah, it was like a team battle, but it wasn't like you can't like just switch characters on the fly. You were basically facing two characters at once. Survival mode, dramatic battle. There's just all these different modes that were not included in any other version of Street Fighter Alpha 3, to my knowledge.
Yeah, the isms and all of that stuff. I mean, they were so prevalent in that game, and it's another thing, that I think is often overlooked in Street Fighter games, like such a cool mechanic.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons like I was so into the Alpha games, because they gave you that flexibility to, kind of cater to your play style. And I think like I'm a huge fan of Street Fighter Alpha 1. I think probably 2 was my least favorite, but not because it was a bad game or anything. I just I had the most time with 1 and 3. And 3, like the style and artwork and music and the announcer, that game has a charisma all of its own that no other Street Fighter has. And not to knock like Street Fighter 3 or Street Fighter 4, because they have their own characteristics too. Like Street Fighter 3, Third Strike. Oh my god, what a fucking amazing game on the Dreamcast. Gorgeous. Another better than Arcade Perfect game. But man, for me, Street Fighter Alpha 3 is the pinnacle of the Street Fighter style that I like the best.
Yeah, that's very respectable. It's an excellent game.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is going to be Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Man, you want to talk about animation being at its finest.
God, that's
this
gorgeous.
is just, it's unbelievable. Just the way that the characters move. Even just take somebody like Ken, the animations are incredible. I would actually say they might even be better than X-Men versus Street Fighter, which most people know. I hold that game dearly to my soul.
Yeah.
For the animation, just everything about it. But Third Strike was just on such a different scale, and the movement and the flow of the animations was just so good. The pairing system and just overall this game, again, completely over the top, arcade perfect, and just an absolute gem in terms of music. It's got that hip hop kind of theme and had a sort of urban feel at times, and just an amazing lineup of characters, pops of color. I mean, it was just such a perfect game to have on the Dreamcast. Incredible memories, of getting my ass beaten into the ground and having some wins as well. But it's the animation, the art style, and all of that stuff that really sold me on that game.
That game is responsible for like the best fighting game video on the face of the earth.
That's right.
Was it Daigo versus I don't even remember.
Justin Wong. I mean, I have a T-shirt that represents it now.
Yeah, that is just unbelievable. If anybody is not familiar with what we're talking about, was it Ken versus Chun-Li, or is it Ryu versus Chun-Li?
So you want to type in Ken versus Chun-Li Evo, or just type in like Evo, Justin Wong, Daigo, and you're going to find that video. And it's going to be an older video, so you'll know which one it is. And it's just this incredible comeback from... I'm not even going to say who. It's just a comeback video. I highly recommend you check it out. Even if you don't like fighting games, you will get chills just watching this, because it's just amazing. And mind you, this was years ago. These guys were young and incredibly talented at the time. And this game is a true testament of sheer talent, because it's a very difficult game.
And it is also a sheer testament to the quality of the game too, because like there was no other game that I was aware of that had that level of precision for its parrying system. Not to that level,
no,
especially not in a 2D
level.
fighter.
And when you go back, because there was a re-release for that game, I want to say like 2012 or 13, somewhere around there. They released it for PS3 and 360, and a really, really good version, by the way. They really tuned up some stuff and added some old school features. But when you go back and you try and practice some of those parries, you realize like, holy fuck, this game's hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's a real wake up call because you remember like how difficult the parries actually are. And timing is just paramount.
Yeah, I mean, it was risk versus reward because you could either take the safe way out, take the block, but maybe incur a little bit of damage, or you could try to time the parry and not only have no damage, but also basically just eat your way through the fireball or the attack and be on the offense.
Yeah, they actually, I don't know if you know this, Drew, but they have that exact Evo moment that you can actually play in that version, so you can do exactly what Daigo does.
Really?
And oh yeah, and I remember finding it to be like next to impossible to pull off. Like it really demonstrates what he accomplished that day and how difficult it really was. And it's a series of moves that you have to do like pretty much perfectly.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was able to do it in such a nick of time and under so much pressure, with such little health, it really makes that moment quite remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, I just watched that video today and I'm still amazed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My number 2, going back to RPGs, was Skies of Arcadia. One of the best RPGs I've ever played. One of the most gorgeous looking things I've ever played. Okay. Fucking Sky Pirates, man.
I'm going to Google this while you wax poetically about this game. I need to Google it because I really am not that familiar.
This is one of those games that, man, like, it just thinking about playing it just brings back all these warm, fuzzy memories. And it had a real emphasis on exploration. Like, once you're in the air and you start, like, becoming a little bit more resilient to certain things, you can, like, just go anywhere and, like, really just explore the world on this hunt to find all these collectibles that'll help you just get stronger and stronger. And, you know, the story on its surface was pretty basic, you know? There wasn't a lot to it, but the characters were all fairly likable, and the gameplay was great, but it was just all these different side quests that, like, really captured the essence of what I was looking for an RPG, and I put a ton of time into this, man. I don't even remember how many hours, but it was a lot of time.
Yeah, it seems like one of those games that's a big time sink. You know, a lot of those... not only just Japanese RPGs in general are ridiculously long, but this one certainly gives off that vibe.
You also had ship battles too, which was really fucking cool. Like, you could have like actual like battles with airships, you know, like cannons out of the fucking sides of them. Because when I say Sky Pirates, I literally want you to think about like a sailing vessel from like the 1800s with fucking wings and propellers on it. It's like Sky Pirate steampunk.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And oh wow, this is amazing. Will just linked me to a custom-made Sega Dreamcast with a Skies of Arcadia theme, and the controller has a lovely patina on it. Man, this is awesome. This is incredible.
Yeah, I literally just went into Google Images and typed in, Skies of Arcadia, and that came up, and I was like, well, this is getting sent to Drew immediately.
Wow, we'll have to share this.
Yeah, I thought my Dreamcast photos were good, but like these are amazing.
Step up your game, brah.
Yeah, seriously. This other link, I haven't even watched this yet, and maybe we'll put it in the public room. But
yeah,
this is Metal Jesus Rocks, who I believe we've mentioned on the show before, and
love him.
He published this. It looks like today.
Oh wow!
And it says Sega Dreamcast with $800 in upgrades and improvements. Did we go too far? I'm probably going to have to watch this after the show.
Well, judging by the number of LEDs that are in this thing, the answer is already yes, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he did to it.
Yeah, and you're familiar with this guy, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. I love him. He's awesome.
He really is. I love his Hidden Gems episodes.
Yeah. He's got some great content. Super genuine YouTuber. He doesn't feel like fake.
No.
You know? But yeah, go play Skies of Arcadia. It's fucking great.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your number 1?
Yeah, we've made it.
I think I know what it is, but
it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
Now, this was a toss-up. It was a toss-up between Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Um, I went with 2.
Right.
And it's not just because it seems to be in the more popular one, which it was, but because I do cherish 1. A lot of people, again, overlook that one, but I really
Mm.
enjoyed playing that one in the arcade and as well at home. But 2 really was the pinnacle when it came to the crossover games, and with MVC2, it really just, the memories I have are just too strong to pass that up as my number 1 choice. And
Yeah.
you know, incredible fighting game, incredible art, pops of color. It had it all. Arcade perfect. Um, Everything about this game is just amazing, and chaotic is really a good way to describe these games. They really are difficult because there's so much going on, and the Dreamcast version is certainly the best, besides the arcade. So
Yeah.
it just has to be my number 1, man.
Yeah, I mean, man, I sucked at this game. um,
It's not easy.
no, I never was able to get the juggling system down for it. Like I love the game. I put a lot of time into it. I unlocked, I think, all the characters, or at least most of them, and then I got the save file from somebody else. But um, I mean, it really is a tremendous game, and it really puts the power of the Dreamcast to use because you had these intricate moving backgrounds while this gorgeous animation for the fighting was going on in front of you. And um, but man, I was just never good at this.
Yeah, and I really wasn't either, but it still takes my number 1 spot because
Yeah,
I just love everything about the game.
yeah,
It's got this weird quality where I know I'm like really bad with
mm.
it, but like there's like this desire to get good. Um,
Mm.
and everything else that comes packaged with it is just, it's everything that I would want out of art style and
Yeah,
sound and visuals, and that's enough for me to just truly love a game. And like you said, there's so much that's going on the screen when
yeah,
you're fighting, or even if you're just playing in arcade mode. That it's amazing that the Dreamcast was able to handle so much power
yeah,
to make this game something really memorable. And the arcade, I mean, that's something that is almost a totally different subject, but
yeah.
it literally just is that. It's a mirror image of it, and to be able to play something so dynamic, I think at home was something that it really brought back so many memories.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to put it too. Is like dynamic at home. You were bringing the arcade feel into your house
Yes,
and sharing it with friends in a way that I think really hadn't been done with any other game. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a very, very competitive game, more so than a lot of games.
incredibly
And
competitive.
even to this day, like just the arcade scene, I think if Marvel vs. Capcom 2 didn't come out, I think the arcade scene probably would have died out much, much sooner.
Yeah, and we've mentioned before, I mean, just the camaraderie and the lines that formed for this game were just
Yeah.
really something over the top, and I kind of get chills even just thinking about it. Like, it was such a spectacle. Even if you weren't good at the game, just to be able to watch and see these kids line up and put their tokens on the dashboard of the arcade cabinet
Yeah.
was just something really that I think is sorely missed by a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's crazy, man. I wish I had more love for that particular game myself, but man, I just suck at it. That's what it
Well,
boils down
you
to.
you could get to a point where maybe you get good, and if we do more game days and game nights, maybe it could be something that starts kind of picking up
Mm,
for you.
yeah.
So
Um,
number 1 for Drew.
what do you think, man? Soul Calibur. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
come
should
on.
have called it. I should have called it.
Um, this is maybe the best fighting game I've ever played.
It's a tremendous game.
Soul Calibur was the first game that I bought a Dreamcast, or the first game I bought when I got my Dreamcast.
And
Um,
it's so respectable too. Like, if you were to say, look, man, I bought this game, or I bought this system for this game, even then to now, it's still something that's like, yep, I
yeah,
totally get it.
And that's exactly like the game that sold me on the system, because I was a fan of Soul Blade on the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
And when Soul Calibur came out, I don't remember having much experience with the first game in the arcade. It was a little tough to find. But I was entranced with Soul Blade, and like that was just a tremendous game. I was never a Tekken player, right? Soul Blade spoke to me. When I played Soul Calibur, I was like, Soul Blade, what? That game,
Yep.
that game was dead to me at that point. And this version on the Dreamcast was every bit better than the arcade. It looked better. It played better. It had better balance in the arcade. This is the game that the arcade version should have been and never was. And to this day, this is one of the games that I am best at. Like, I always joke around that I suck at games. I will fucking kick your ass in Soul Calibur. Bring it.
You will. You will. I mean,
and that's something that I pride myself in, because I spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours playing against all of my friends. Anybody that would pick up a controller and play with me, I would play with them. And it wasn't like just one fight, one and done. Like, we would have battles, fierce battles, back and forth, and like they were every bit as good as I was. But man, like I was so into this game that I was determined to be better. And I think like this is the one game that I feel comfortable bragging about.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm normally pretty humble when it comes to gaming, because you know what? I suck at games. People are way better at it than I am. But Soul Calibur, man, that's my fucking game. And I will throw down on this game. Give me like 15 minutes to like warm up and play it again, and it'll come right back to me. And I could play as any character in this game and hold my own. Of course, I have my best characters, you know, Kalik, Mitsurugi, Taki. Those are probably my top 3. But fucking, I can go at it with Lizard Man. I can go at it with Zhanghua. Man, and just like there was so much balance in this game. Like every character had like its weaknesses and its strengths, but nobody was overpowering compared to the other ones. Like, it was truly like just the perfect fighting game.
Yeah, so much polish was put into it, like I had mentioned before. And, you know, you have characters like Cervantes and stuff, and
Yeah.
it was so cool, man. Like, you want to talk about cool games, this is absolutely one. I mean, like I said, the stage music and the announcer, everything, just choosing your character, it just all felt so cool and special and rewarding, and just it was such a cool package, man.
Yeah. Everything about it was just so fucking cool. The music, the announcer, welcome back to the stage of history. Like, oh man, just thinking about it, I get chills. And
it's epic. It's epic.
It is so epic on so many levels. And
the stages alone, you know, I've spoken about the music, but like just the stages are awesome too. Like, I mean, like the backgrounds, and you know, a lot of them, you know, make you feel like you're on this big platform, and like it's nice because that game, obviously, there's a very special movement and cadence to how you move around, and you know, you have that 3D movement where you can go side to side, and you really feel like you're in this sort of arena atmosphere, and it's something very unique.
Yeah, I mean, every stage just like really captured the essence of the characters that it was supposed to represent. And you know, not every character had their own stages, but the ones that did, like, just felt like you were in their lair, you know, like you're in their home. And the character design too is just so fucking great. Everybody had their own style and feel to it. Their weapons felt like they had weight. Like, try playing as Taki and then turn around and play as like Nightmare or Siegfried, and you're like trying to swing this heavy ass sword. You know, it has such a slow movement speed, but then when it hits like a truck, you know. Oh man, and then like just guard parrying and guard canceling each other's moves, and I would go back and forth. Man, I remember playing with my buddy Brett, and we would sit there for minutes at a time just canceling each other out and trying to parry each other. It would just literally back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then when one of us finally got the other one, everybody would just like finally like cheer, like go nuts.
Yeah. The crazy thing about
I'm sorry, go on.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say that the crazy thing about Soul Calibur is when you are fighting against somebody who's like really, well tuned and really good at playing the game, and you're not, like, you will be beaten into like smithereens, and like that's the that's the only like drawback is like if you're not good, like it's very punishing, that game. Like you will be punished. It's similar to Tekken. Like, if you get hit with the right combo and you start getting juggled, like it's game over. And like, when you get arena'd out and stuff like that, and, just being pummeled by somebody like Cervantes, you're just like, fuck, man. Like you just watch your health drain, like just pouring out water. It's discouraging. So like if anybody listening has not played these games, just be aware that like you might want to get some practice time in before you go against anybody.
Yeah. Oh man, Damien and I used to have some like sick battles back and forth, Mitsurugi versus Yoshimitsu, and like Kalik was my main character. We'd go back and forth, and he would try to knock me out of the ring all the time. Man, I just
you've got to know your bread and butter combos. You've got to know some stuff, because you really just cannot button mash. And if you do, you're pretty lucky, because there's only certain characters, to my knowledge, that enable you to kind of get away with that a little bit. And Mitsurugi is not one of them.
No. I mean, I think people tend to have the most success with Maxi when it comes to button mashing. But the reality is he's such a deep character that if you're playing against Maxi and you try to button mash, you're just going to get owned.
Well, they're not maximizing him. No pun intended. God, I walked right into that. But characters like Hua Rang and Tekken and Maxi are often picked because they're like cool. And they look cool, and Hua Rang has like these awesome kicks, and Maxi's got his nunchucks. But they're both very advanced characters. Like you said, there's different stances. There's a lot of fakes. There's a lot of cancels and stuff. And when you master those characters, like you can flourish. It's kind of like Steve Fox is another one from Tekken. Like those guys are really hard to use, but they're often picked because they're cool. You could even say the same for Eddie Gordo in some ways. Like a lot of people will say that he's cheap and he's easy to use, but he's got some pretty intricate move sets as well. So
yeah, I mean he's a pretty deep character. Man, I just I never really got into Tekken. This was so much for me. Soul Calibur was better than Tekken in every single way possible.
In a lot of ways, it is. Tekken, without going off into a tangent, is a much more advanced moveset based game that requires an incredible amount of patience and timing and just really, again, knowing your bread and butters.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I think to say that Soul Calibur really is doing Soul Calibur a disservice too, because it really is like that sort of timing is just as important.
Oh no, I'm not discrediting it. I'm just saying that Tekken is really, really advanced from like my perspective, but Soul Calibur is certainly in the same category. It's just my experience with the two is I just feel like Tekken is like trying to solve a fucking Einstein equation.
Fair enough.
Whereas at least Soul Calibur, like you can like get the gist of things like fairly quickly. Whereas Tekken is like, God damn, dude, I gotta go back to the move list again.
Yeah. Oh man, I just get warm fuzzies talking about the game. I could talk about I could play Soul Calibur for days, just straight.
It's just excellent.
No sleep. We asked our listeners to chime in with their favorite memories of the Sega Dreamcast, and let's take a look at some of them. What do you think, man?
Yeah. This is going to be our, I guess, our wrap up. This is a long show.
Yeah. We did go kind of long on this one, but I just get wound up and I can't help myself.
That's fair. It's a wonderful system.
Saikoro says Soul Calibur all the way. Our memories of matching up, me and him. Our memories of matching up make for tons of stories alone. Crazy Taxi is number 2. Learning the crazy drift techniques to extend my scores to 45,000 plus would never be forgotten. Saikoro is like insane at like any game that he puts any attention into. That includes both Soul Calibur and Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, Damien has a very special knack for really kind of mastering a game very quickly. He has a really good, I don't know, like just a good, like, I don't know what the right word is, like just an inkling to kind of pick games up fast and just kind of understand like how he just kind of gets it. And with Crazy Taxi 2, I remember him talking about that drift technique quite a few times, and
Yeah.
he's definitely one to, once he figures something out, like he'll exploit it. But oftentimes in quite a fair way, because he's just like, well, the game's letting me do it, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to stack up points, and that's just kind of how he conducts his gaming life.
Yeah, yeah. Epic Outro says, my favorite Dreamcast games were Skies of Arcadia, Grandia 2, Resident Evil, Code Veronica. My favorite Dreamcast memory is playing Zombie Revenge with Brett. After bashing our way through a battle, he uttered, "I am the martial arts master, ass-kicking bastard." And it was just legendary. Gotta love that, man. Let's see here. Banksy says, Shenmue, the first open world game. Graphics blew me away. Puxor says, the Dreamcast was one of my favorite systems, so it's hard to pin down a memory. I got really into Sonic Adventure, including all the KO stuff, including putting them in a VMU and taking them to school with me. See, there you go.
Yep.
The only time I snuck out to play games was to finish that one. It was my last system before going totally PC gamer, so I remember all the ridiculous transition stuff like bringing a Dreamcast to a LAN party so people who couldn't bring PCs could still play Quake 3 with us or play Phantasy Star Online on unofficial servers. Vortex wrote a book. He says, oh my god, where do I start? So many. One of my best memories is when Damien and Jay stayed the night, and basically Damien stayed awake the whole night to beat my high score. I'm assuming he's meaning Crazy Taxi. And he did it by learning he's talking about Crazy Taxi. He did it by learning the Crazy Drift, like you said above. That was such an awesome night/day. Playing all the fighting games we all played every weekend. Started with fighting games and moved on to Halo. Endless bouts of Soul Calibur, King of Fighters, Marvel vs. Capcom, Rival Schools, Tech Romancer. Forcing myself to learn Soul Calibur because I was tired of just watching you guys play. Going to Tommy K's to rent games because they were the only ones with a good Dreamcast collection.
Oh my god, Tommy K's.
Yeah, that's a throwback, right?
Big time.
Being the only person in Milford to pre-order Rival Schools and Tech Romancer from EB Games, the guy was legit was like, we're only getting one copy and it's yours. Both those games were delayed so many times that I never thought I'd ever get them. And when they were finally here, they were worth the wait and then some. Both of those games are fantastic, by the way. I could have like a list of honorable mentions.
Oh, I'm sure.
His best memory, though, is playing Jet Set Radio for the first time and eventually being able to skate and grind the bus stop area without touching the ground once. That game was way, way ahead of its time, and the soundtrack till this day is in my top 3 soundtracks of all time. It might not hold up well if you played it for the first time now due to its hit detection, but man, it was so much fun.
That's quite a story, man, but like what a good one. I mean, so many really like solid memories.
Yeah, man, like we used to play, like I didn't drop this in my top 5, but Capcom versus SNK. Me and Vic and Damien and Vinci and Jay and Brett, we just spend like hours and hours playing that game, and you know winner stays, loser pays kind of thing. We would just have like just epic battles in that game too, and like that was almost in my top 5, but I just really wanted to try and capture different sides of the Dreamcast as well.
Sure.
Let's see here. Love Muffin says, I never owned a Dreamcast and never really had any time to delve too deeply into its game library. What was the appeal that spawned such a diverse and enthusiastic fan base over other consoles and games at that time? I always hear people say it was ahead of its time, but what does that actually mean? Well, hopefully by the end of this episode, you'll be able to answer that question.
I would say so. Yeah.
I think we've kind of covered the bases on that, but man, like there's just so much that it did that really, still hasn't even been done in gaming again.
Yeah.
So it was a tipping point, I think, for the video game industry, because we went from video games looking like they used to video games looking like they do now, and the Dreamcast was that pivot point.
It really was.
Raffy Fat Fingers ignored the question. Joe Donut says, okay, here's my screed about the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast might be one of the least impressive retro consoles you can own today. Most of the library has been re-released elsewhere. The controller is terrible, and almost every console has a flaky disk drive at this point. but at the time, the Dreamcast was responsible for some of my favorite gaming memories. Number 1, 2 straight years of epic Soul Calibur game nights among friends. Number 2, my first real online gaming experience, Phantasy Star Online, aka the prequel to Destiny. Number 3, a month raising my Seaman with Leonard Nimoy. Oh my god, I could talk about that game forever too, man. What a fucking great game. Number 4, finally finishing Half-Life via a burned copy of the unreleased Gearbox port. Number 5, deep-seated trauma every time I see Sonic Adventure 2 because I 100%ed it to unlock the secret Green Hill Zone level. Nice. Number 6, 60 hours of Ikaruga, the best 2D shmup of all time. My god, man, 60 hours of that game, that is brutal.
Jesus.
That is impressive. That is a fucking impressive number. Number 7, a million little in-jokes amongst friends that persist today. I still say bootlets when I pick up ammo in a game because of the goofy announcer in Zombie's Revenge. Number 8, countless first experiences with games that still persist today. Rez, Shenmue, Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, Street Fighter 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And number 9, last and certainly not least, he says, and last and certainly least, that time I made a character that looked exactly like me in Virtual Tennis 2, only to read an EGM article shortly after saying that the character creator only let them make characters that looked like child molesters.
Oh my god. I usually prep myself with these questions, but I did not read all of Joe's, and that is just...
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. That is outstanding.
And Nerdy Super Bree chimes in saying, I like kicking Joe Donut's butt with Kalik and Soul Calibur before he remembers how to play. Otherwise, I'm a youngin'. Good choice with Kalik. Kalik is my main. He is my number 1. But
outstanding character.
What great stories, everyone. Thank you for sharing these with us. I don't think we had any on Facebook. I'll take one last peek before we go. Nope, nothing.
Yeah, really great stories. Really impressed with Joe and Vic there with some pretty solid, substantial, like very vivid, detailed memories. Which just goes to show that this console really enabled a lot of us to have some pretty amazing times and experiences with games.
Yeah. I mean, it's to this day, the Dreamcast is very, very high on my list of favorite systems, and it had a really short lifespan in America. Only about 2 years. But man, it was, like I said at the start of the show, it burned hot and bright, and like my list of honorable mentions is for the top 5 is very deep. Marvel vs. Capcom, King of Fighters, Capcom vs. SNK, Unreal Tournament. There's so many, like, I'd have to give my games, Tech Romancer, Power Stone 2, Rival Schools, Project Justice. I mean, like, there were so many like incredible fighting games on this system alone, and I was so into fighting games at the time that I like feel like I completely missed an entire chunk of the library because I wasn't into those types of games. But like House of the Dead, Typing of the Dead, what else was there? Wasn't there a game called Samba de Amigo? Wasn't that for the Dreamcast? I think it had the fucking maracas. Yeah, you could play the game with maracas. There was like a extra peripheral you can buy. It came with the game. Seaman, which came with a microphone. You could talk to your character and like nurture these living creatures that would talk back and like say horrible things to you. The shmups. Oh my god, the shmups. Mars Matrix, Bang.io, Ikaruga. I messed that up. Ikaruga.
Oh Jesus Christ!
I'm so tired and worn
Ikaruga.
out. Thank you, Ikaruga. I said it before. I know how to say the fucking word.
I know how to say it. It's Ikaruga.
I'm just tired, man.
Yeah,
we've been talking for a long time.
Show. Yeah, I agree with Joe. Just my sort of final comments here. Right now, it could be seen as one of the least impressive retro consoles in some ways, because he is right. I mean, there are certainly some things that I am not a huge fan of. I mean, the controller is pretty fucking terrible, and the disk drive definitely had some issues. But he's right. At the time, it was responsible for a lot of like really great memories. And at the time as well, it wasn't seen as not impressive. It was it was seen as very impressive. But yeah, looking back on it now, it's definitely more of a cult following, because a lot of people are just like, oh, I got like a, picked up an NES or a Super NES original, blah, blah, blah. And like the Dreamcast, just always gets overstepped a lot, because it had such a short life. And, it kind of catered to, I think, a certain audience, because a lot of the games were not exactly like, Mario, Zelda type games. They weren't big AAA games. A lot of them were pretty exclusive and, very special to the system. So, no wonder it didn't have, a massive following.
Yeah. Well, those games may have been special to the system, but man, they were special to me. And
100%. 100%. I'm so glad I bought the system. In total, I've bought the system 3 times.
Jesus Christ. Stop that.
It was once originally, and then I traded it in. And then when I started my collecting process back in 2004, 2005, that kind of time period, I picked up it again, brand new, mind you, off of Amazon, completely new.
Wow.
I was really stupid to get rid of that one. And I did. I sold it, I think, on eBay, and then I got another one, like last year or whatever, when I ordered everything, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, like now, my yellow-stained console hopefully will last a long time.
Well, man, you just take good care of it, and she'll take good care of you,
That's it.
We've talked about some of the mods that are available for the system, too, and there are replacements for the disk drive, so if and when that happens, there's not... you don't have to throw it away. Like there's things that we can do to get you up and running.
Mm-hmm.
So, on that note, I could talk about this thing for hours, but we're gonna have to end this podcast sooner or later. So I guess now's a good time, huh?
Yeah. We'll wrap it up, and I hope folks will listen through. I mean, again, it's a longer episode, but it's worth it, and I think it was necessary for such a special release.
Hopefully you guys have learned a little bit about us and the passion for the system and how much the Dreamcast means to us in the realm of video games, and gives you a bit of an insight into like what we were doing back in 1999 and 2000. So
yeah, because we're like old now.
Yeah, it's, oh my God, that was 20 years ago. Anyway,
yeah.
One more time, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ScienceStorm. Will, how can they find you?
Will_gear.
And of course, please take a moment to subscribe to the show. If you're listening to us for the first time, we hope you like what you heard. Stop on by the Discord room and say hi. The show notes have all the links to everything you need to stay in touch with us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody who sent in your wonderful memories of this amazing, amazing system. Dreamcast, we love you. R.I.P. Press F for respects.
Happy belated birthday.
Happy belated birthday, man. I want to play Soul Calibur right now. It is 11:40. It's 11:46 on the East Coast. I am like seriously thinking about breaking out my cables and fucking hooking this thing up and playing a few rounds.
Fuck it, I'm doing it.
I'm so excited about the Dreamcast right now.
Hey man, if you have the energy, all the power to you, but I certainly don't.
I guarantee you, as soon as I hit disconnect on this call, I am going to like pass the fuck out.
Same.
But it doesn't mean I don't want to. Like, I want to.
Hey, there's always tomorrow morning.
There's always tomorrow morning. So, everybody, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
All right, see ya. Bombas.
What the fuck is a bomba?
Let me explain. I'm just going to send a photo. Let me see if I can take a horrible picture here. Actually, this won't be so bad. I was thinking that it was going to be super dark because the room is dark, but it actually came out well. So let me send this over. Oh man, these things just melt in your mouth.
It sounds dirty.
Let's see here. Here we go. It's a Trader Joe's item.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Uh-huh.
Peanut. Okay, it's a peanut snack.
Yep.
But I still don't know what the fuck it is.
All right.
Because that bag looks like my grandmother's chandelier.
It's like a weird tapestry.
Yeah, I mean, is it supposed to be like a hot air balloon?
Yeah, it is.
Well, it looks like shit.
I'm sorry to disappoint. Let me take a picture of an actual Bamba.
Bamba. I was expecting bomb, like BOMBA.
All right, so just be forewarned that this is going to look like a potato phone photo.
Oh god.
Oh my god, it's so bad. I'm still going to send it. Just for the sheer humor.
Oh my god, that is the worst photo I've ever seen.
That's so bad. I need to get and I have like an iPhone like 14.
You know what the funny thing is too, man? Like the way the blurriness is and the shape of the item, it looks like somebody's sending like an unsolicited dick pic on a Nokia phone.
Yeah.
Look,
like
man, it's only as big as my thumbnail.
I know. It's like a slightly peanut butter covered small chode. I know. There's you could tell that you wanted to like vomit slightly with that. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's a lot better.
You got a better picture?
It's a HD Bamba on the way.
Hold on a second.
Is that the episode title? HD Bamba?
It could be. I was just going to go with Happy Birthday Dreamcast, but whatever.